Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Thursday. Brian Kamenetzky, Andy Kamenetzky, Bradley Beal is on his way to the Clippers. No big surprise there, but does it open up the rest of free agency? That is next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter where you get your podcasts. This one is always free, and it's never going to be behind a paywall. Of course, Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 35,000 subscribers to the channel, Andy, all of whom are talking to each other. They're talking to us. They're leaving questions. They're leaving comments. And they are wondering what is going to come now that Bradley Beal has officially been, the buyout is coming, and he's going to pass through waivers, and he's going to sign a 2-year deal with the Los Angeles Clippers. He can keep tracking, Andy, of the money that he's getting from the Clippers with Monarch Money. Monarch Money is sponsoring today's episode. You can take control of your finances with Monarch Money. And Bradley Beal, like everyone else, can use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off his first year.
Well, he did just take a buyout. He took a little bit of a haircut so he can make it back by getting this sweet deal with Monarch Money.
Right.
This is how smart money people get whole again.
Right. To some degree, I guess, like I've seen a few people online like framing this decision from Bradley Beal. It's like Bradley Beal chooses the Clippers over the Lakers. Lakers mystique is dead. Long live Lakers mystique, I guess. But it's an interesting thing because I don't even know how much people really buy into this idea that free agents still, or quite frankly, in the last 25 years have really ever signed with the Lakers. Like the lure of the Lakers, taking less money, choosing the Lakers because it's the Lakers as opposed to, it's LA, it's it's a good situation. I can start, I can do whatever. Like the normal reasons people choose to pick a city in their free agency or demand a trade. Like it was just interesting to me to see people kind of try to pounce on that as if Bradley Beal might not have had a better reason to go to the Clippers than the Lakers.
Well, to begin, he had a better reason to go to the Clippers in the sense that he had a starting role lined up, tailor-made for him, because after the Clippers traded Norm Powell as part of that 3-way deal to Miami, bringing them John Collins, they have a starting two-guard spot available and a need to put Bradley Beal in there, which whatever you want to make of Lakers mystique, how much it matters, doesn't matter, whatever. For what it's worth, what really matters is that the front office doesn't believe that that's all it takes to get guys to show up. Like what we in the media or fans out there think of Lakers mystique, Lakers exceptionalism doesn't really matter even close to as much as what they think in the building. But Bradley Beal, by all reports, wants to keep starting, as most players do, by the way. And he was reportedly very unhappy with the way Phoenix moved him to the bench very transparently as a way of trying to get him to become miserable enough to lift his no trade clause and be more cooperative, essentially trying to get him to essentially quit the Suns. But he wanted to start, and the Clippers offer him that. The Lakers and Clippers are more or less on the same tier in terms of where they reside in the Western Conference. You can make an argument for either one of them potentially being better than the other. I would personally bet on the Lakers ahead of the Clippers, just in the sense that I believe in them staying healthier than the Clippers.
Yeah, I think the Clippers have a better roster than the Lakers. I think the Clippers just have more injury questions than the Lakers do. They have that every year.
Sure, but the point being, Bradley Beal, the situation in a lot of ways was pretty comparable. Lakers versus Clippers. The money was not going to be big. I think the Clippers could offer him a little more money than the Lakers could. But in the grand scheme of what Bradley Beal's already made and the type of money we're talking about, it wasn't that huge. I think the big thing was he was able to start definitively for the Clippers, and the Lakers, at the very least, were not in a position to automatically offer him that, whether because you think Austin Reeves should be the starting two guard for the Lakers moving forward because you think he's better than Beal, because of the politics of trying to re-sign him as he heads into a walk year, because you feel like you can't start both, because if you had concerns about Luka, LeBron, Austin, Rui, Ayton lineup defensively, wait until you see Luka, LeBron, Austin, Beal, Ayton. Like, Rui is prime Kevin Garnett defensively compared to Bradley Beal.
So there's just a lot of. I'm not sure I'd go that far, but
no, actually, I would. Bradley Beal is if nothing else, you can count on Rui trying more defensively than you can count on Beal trying.
Beal had, back in the day when Beal was playing more significant basketball, when Washington didn't completely suck, he wasn't terrible, but like, it's been a minute since it's been a bit. I mean, one of the arguments,
you're right, he had that great stretch in 2015 where he was lights out defensively.
Right. The point being that, like, in theory, like, that is buried in there somewhere. It's been a minute since Beal played meaningful basketball, period, which I think people have seen. I've seen people questioning how good of a signing this is for the Clippers because of that. Like, oh, it's, there's more to winning basketball than but like, at $5 million a year, 5+ or whatever it is, 5.5, like, there's just no way to, spin this if you want it to be negative for the Clippers, because he will play winning enough basketball. He'll play $5 million worth of winning basketball for sure on that team, and assuming he's healthy. And so I look at that, and I agree with you. It's a better situation. It makes more sense for him. The Lakers, like you say,
it makes more sense for what he wants. Like, if he was okay with being a sixth man in a key role on the Lakers could have made sense for him, and it would have been a good signing for the Lakers. But it would have been a great.
Beal made a lot of sense for the Lakers. That's not what I'm saying. Like, they had a role for him where they needed him. There would have been a great fill for the Lakers. But if Beal doesn't want to do it, he doesn't want to do it. There's no way. You can't make a guy sign with your team, as Rob Pelinka likes to say. You need partners. And so
Beal's not a house for sale, is what you're saying?
He is not a house for sale. He was briefly for sale, but he never really hit the market, Andy. Again, the part that I think is just, is not to cape up for the Lakers, but it is this notion of, like, the Lakers being rejected by prime free agents who would have had to, in this case, reject a starting position and reject, Andy, a little bit more of the money to make up for the $14 million he's giving back for being released in the first place. He's now going to be about $3 million. I want to say $3 or $4 million short. So please pass a hat for Bradley Beal. But, like, I think it's one of these things that gets dredged up so that people can pile on the Lakers when things aren't going well, which isn't necessary. There are so many other reasons to pile on the Lakers. You don't have to invent them. Like, this notion that of the Lakers in the time, really, even that we've covered them, which is getting up about 20 years at this point, it's never been a thing that the Lakers have had this draw, this, hypnotic draw on players and free agents and stuff, where people kind of just sacrifice what is seen as their own well-being. Most of the time,
I can think of one example in the time that we've covered the Lakers that you can maybe say that was the case. And it's when they signed Ron Artest, because Ron, first of all, was geeked as bleep.
Yes.
to play with the Lakers, to play with Kobe. It was actually kind of adorable how openly he just worshipped Kobe as his teammate. It was actually pretty funny and endearing to see. And I remember I did a profile of Ron now Meta, for ESPN.com back in the day when we used to write for them. And he told me a story about how he had been planning that same offseason to re-sign with the Rockets for what he said would be a pretty big bag. And then Yao Ming ended up getting hurt, and that changed their plans, and the Rockets ultimately wanted to go in a different direction. And then he ended up signing for the Lakers with less money, if nothing else, than he said he was going to get from Houston. How much more he could have gotten on the open market, I can't say for sure. This was going on, 15, 16 years ago. But he's the one guy that I can think of that as a free agent seemed very much into the idea of, hell yeah, I'm joining with the Lakers.
I want to play with Kobe, the legend of him, walking up on him in the shower and all. But even then, Andy, like you say, was predicated on the idea that the bag was taken away.
Sure.
In Houston.
Absolutely.
So for the Lakers,
he framed it as a bit of a pay cut for what it's worth.
For the Lakers, though, and the rest of the league, I mean, Beal chose the Lakers weren't like the only other team that were interested in Beal. The real effect could become what happens in the rest of free agency. So we'll ask that question next, plus the question of what LeBron really wants. We'll do all of it next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Open Phone. And when is the last time when you're running a business that you had a service emergency and the first person or company that you called, they didn't answer, and you just waited around for them to get back to you? You didn't. You called someone else. So in business, every missed call is money left on the table. And that's why Open Phone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications all through an app on your phone or your computer. And I love that Open Phone doesn't require 2 phones. With Open Phone, you can manage your business calls and texts from one app, whether you're at your desk or on the go, and there's a shared inbox so your team can jump into any conversation without missing a beat. Their AI agent handles after-hours calls, answers common questions, captures leads, so you never miss a customer. And Open Phone is offering our listeners 20% off the first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you're switching from another service, Open Phone will even port your existing numbers over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers.
All right. So for the Lakers, I guess you're hoping maybe Beal signs for a little bit less, whatever it might be. But what this really ought to do, or could do, or might do, is shake loose the rest of these players that have been kind of waiting around, because a lot of teams were interested in Bradley Beal at the basic rate that the Clippers ended up getting him, and have whatever space they've held off using it. Because they needed to wait until that was done. So now it is, and guys like Melton or Amir Coffey or Al Horford or whoever it might be, I think teams might push in a little bit more if they are so inclined to fill in some of these places. You may see now players, kind of, okay, I'm going to make my choice now because I'm going to take this amount of money from team X, Y, or Z while it's still there. Nobody wants to be the last guy standing heading into training camp. So, I mean, it does seem at least possible that the almost standstill in free agent signings might pick up a little bit over the next week or two.
If nothing else, I think it depends on the position. I think guards in particular, now that Bradley Beal, who was the biggest guard expected to be an unrestricted free agent, is with a team, guys like a De'Anthony Melton or an Amir Coffey or Josh Okogie, like guys like that may find themselves starting to make choices. I think someone like Al Horford, I don't know how much it can be affected if you're a different position. I don't know how much you're necessarily waiting on the restricted free agency of Jonathan Kuminga or Josh Giddey or some of these other things to get sorted out, because that can also affect
Side note, what a terrible year to be a restricted free agent.
Side note to the side note, the Warriors, remember the front office that propped themselves up as light years ahead of everybody, 2 timelines, we're geniuses, you all wish you could be us. Good Lord, did they bleep that Jonathan Kuminga situation for like 3 or 4 straight years. They screwed that thing up so badly.
It does seem like it. I mean, he is in, it looks like he's going to end up back in Golden State with the promise of being traded at some point. That's what we're doing now.
Do you know how much they could have gotten for him like a few years ago?
A lot.
And the worst part, on top of it too, like it's very clear that he could be helpful in some ways, but because he does not fit exactly what they do, they will not tailor a damn thing for him. It's like they want to win this thing on principle as opposed to just guys.
It's too hard. I mean, and it's, every year, look, there's a lesson in here for the Lakers. I think when you think about Dalton Connect, I mean, it's not the same. Kuminga has obviously been in the league longer. He drafted higher, flash more potential, better
More at
athlete.
stake.
Yeah, better athlete, blah, 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 and so on and so on. But it's, when you pull the trigger on a guy like this is critical. Like, yes, everybody, you start to be like, I should make a move, but you have in the back of your mind, like, there's a reason I drafted this guy. We see the potential. And what you really never want to see happen is a guy who you drafted couldn't make work in your system go somewhere else and thrive.
Mm-hmm.
Like that tends to be something that really embarrasses front offices. And so you kind of get right up to the line of being like, let's, you know what, we got to move on, cut bait, stop throwing good money after bad, whatever expression you want to use. And then you wait too long. And now you are re-signing a guy with the idea that you might trade him, which just lends instability and makes your guy super, super disgruntled. With cause. Like, I don't even know Jonathan Kuminga, but like at this point,
I don't think
he's at least partially responsible for the situation he's in, but like, I'd be annoyed too.
Right. Like you don't want to commit to me, but you don't want to let me go either, because you consider my value to be almost, again, like a thing of principle as opposed to a basketball player.
Correct. It's interesting. We got a couple emails. We did the show we did for Wednesday was all about sort of free agency and who's around, and would Josh Okogie be a good signing when he clears waivers? So I'm pretty sure he has to do that. But when he becomes officially available from Charlotte, they're letting him go. Would he be a good person to sign? A few people in the comments section for Wednesday's show on the YouTube page did ask about Darius Bazley, which I thought was interesting because, we talked about, my big problem with Okogie, as opposed to say Melton, is just the Lakers have too many one-way guys.
Yeah.
I have no problem with either one of those guys filling the roster spot, but I prefer Melton. He's got a little bit more of an offensive game.
Yeah. I have concerns about him recovering from an ACL, but
he's never healthy. And he's the less, I think, of the two, probably a little bit lesser defender. Just a little bit more balanced as a player.
Yes. Agreed.
The same question can be asked about Bazley, not just in terms of skill set, but also what position, if you're only going to fill in one more spot on the roster, what position are you going to try to fill? You can make an argument the Lakers need a guard. You can make an argument that they could use an athletic forward. So, I don't know, pick one.
Well, it's funny. They need an athletic forward, but they also have a lot of forwards on this team getting a pretty big chunk of minutes as currently constructed. Like LeBron's going to get a lot of minutes. Rui is going to get a lot of minutes. DeAndre Ayton's in the front court. He's going to get a lot of minutes. Luka, in certain ways, functions as much as a forward as he does a guard. So I think in some ways, like whether or not you would need Darius Bazley or want Darius Bazley could be dependent on who is still on the roster when training camp opens. But look, the best thing Bazley can do is pique interest in him after having his struggles staying in the league the last couple seasons. This summer league, I think, has absolutely piqued interest in him. Kind of reminded some teams, this guy a few years ago looked like he could be, if nothing else, a useful NBA player.
I think, obviously, I mean, to some degree, it's a combination of who's the best player available. Obviously, talent matters. If you can sign a much better player, even if it's not totally the position of need, but you can really upgrade your roster, I think you kind of just do it and figure out some of those things later if there really is that big of a difference in the players that you're signing. And then it just gets down to skill set. Like, which skill set do you think you can most adequately fill? And then the third question is, which guys do you think is actually going to play? And you're right, because if you have too many guys like in front of Bazley, that he does potentially fill a need. He's much more athletic than a lot of the guys, very bouncy. And you would think would be playing extra hard, given that he would have clawed his way back into the league. You could argue that a guy in the backcourt is going to get more time, that there may be a few more minutes available for a De'Anthony Melton or something like that. So
they really need to shrink Bazley into small forward size. That's actually what I think they need more just straight up classic wings, guys between
like put him in the dryer.
Put him in the dryer on the highest setting possible. Like that, because when you're asking before, like, what do they really need? And you said, they could use some athletic forwards, that, they could use a more proven backup center, I guess, unless you really believe in a couple months of Jackson Hayes or what Maxi Kleber could be rebound, like in a rebound season. They could use a point of attack defender. They still, and this team has struggled to consistently find, I know they're so coveted, they can be more difficult to attain, like a true wing, like a true Trevor Ariza type player. They've really, other than old Trevor that they had a few years ago, like they could use a player like that.
We had a conversation about LeBron James earlier in this week, and we're not done with it. It's really interesting as we sort of stepped away from that and the news calmed down around LeBron to kind of really think about what is happening here with a guy going into his 22nd season, right? Age 41 or 22nd, 23rd. That's pretty good. Into his age 41 season. What exactly is it that he wants? We'll ask that question next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Monarch Money. And have you ever wished that managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can be. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, your investments, your spending, all in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Like, as an example, my daughter is about to start high school, which means I now need to be thinking about college, tuition, dorm expenses, and that can be really daunting. And Monarch can help me streamline my spending, figure out areas where I can be more efficient, where I can save better, and really just create a plan for this next step. And you can take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year.
I have often, Andy, talked about how I find old Kobe to be not like end of the line old Kobe, but like, when we all thought like he was like second wave Kobe, like when he's getting into his 30s, he's still really good and all these. Like, I've always found that guy to be in some ways more interesting than young Kobe. You can argue a little bit of that with LeBron, like the situation that he is in right now, independent of whether you love LeBron, hate LeBron, want him gone, don't want him gone, or whatever. It is quite literally unprecedented in NBA history. And to be here witnessing it and trying to figure out exactly, these are people, they're athletes, they have egos, they have wants, they want to play good, relevant basketball, they want their money. Like, there's so many things at play in a way that has never happened in NBA history. It's kind of fascinating to be here to watch it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And there, like you said, a lot of this is starting to settle down a little bit. There was a recent report from Dan Wojcicki, who now covers the Lakers for The Athletic, friend of the show, great coverage. but that the expectations now, I'm paraphrasing a little bit from the piece, but the expectations now are that LeBron is going to open camp with the Lakers. Thus far, there has been no request from LeBron or Clutch for a trade, for a buyout, that everything is essentially status quo if you just looked at this from 5,000 foot, above without seeing any of the details. It's the details, though, and a lot of the context that let you know that there is some tension going on right now. And I think a degree of discomfort and discontent, certainly on LeBron's side at the very least.
Look, I think ultimately what happens is he plays out this season. I actually don't think there's a 0% chance that he comes back next season.
This might be his best situation for the rest of his career, whether he is thrilled about it or not.
And, the Lakers might do more. Like, again, we're not done with this offseason. There is still stuff that could happen in this offseason, and we're not closing the book or grading what the Lakers have done until the offseason is over. But he's not going anywhere before that, because there's just nowhere for him to go. And what I think is, to me at least, what's fascinating about it, it's like this question of like, what does he want? And they all have ego. Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that LeBron James doesn't have an ego. But I think more than anything, what I think he really wants isn't, just like attention or the drama or all this. I think more than anything, what he's sort of scared of in his year 23 season at age 41, maybe playing one more season, maybe two, is just being irrelevant. Like, is playing in a situation where his only relevance is, wow, look how cool that old guy is doing things, the cool stuff the old guy is doing, or let's clap for LeBron when he comes into our building for the last time. I think that kind of sideshow irrelevance is really the thing that he's trying to avoid most of all.
Irrelevance isn't the word that I would use, just because LeBron, by definition, is pretty much always relevant, and he's playing,
but irrelevant in the context of being at least plausibly relevant to the playoffs, plausibly relevant to win a title, that kind of thing.
Sure, but I mean, at the same time, he's not playing on a trash team right now. He's playing on a team that won 50 games last year, despite a few different roster incarnations. You're going to have a full season with Luka Doncic, who appears to be in the best shape of his life. They have an actual center in DeAndre Ayton, who's legit starting caliber. Like, this team is better right now than it was where it left off after Game 5 against the Wolves.
Right. Despite the perception that they've not really gotten better because other teams have been busier.
Right. They may not be championship frontrunners, and we both agree they're not, but they're not bad either. And LeBron's path towards being on one of those teams is exceptionally limited, in part because of the contract that he opted into, which he wanted to have, and that's fine. Like, these things are complicated, and you prioritize different things different ways for different reasons. And I don't think any less of LeBron for clearly one of the things he prioritized was, I want to get my full contract that I negotiated. Like, I don't fault him for that. But like what I was saying before, I don't think irrelevancy is the right word, just because he is playing at too high of a level. He's too big of a deal, and his team is currently too good to be irrelevant. But I think it's relevancy as defined by LeBron for his entire career is, and I don't mean to present this him as being a narcissist, because that's not what I mean. I'm just saying this is the truth. Relevance for LeBron is center of the universe. Everywhere I have been, everything revolves around me. I am the most important person in any setting that I'm ever in. And ever since the Lakers traded for Luka, and there have been, I guess, little signs of it before, just because the Lakers were clearly reluctant to just go all in, no questions asked with LeBron and AD, but especially ever since they traded for Luka, it has become clear that he's not the number one priority. And I think where this really reared its head in a way that I think bothered LeBron more than anything else was when they did not give him his standard 1+1 deal and allow him to keep his options open, essentially in perpetuity at 50-ish mil a pop for however long he wanted. And this is something our everydayers know. That's the right choice. The Lakers made the right choice here, not because they want to push LeBron out the door necessarily, not because they aren't grateful for LeBron, not because they don't think LeBron is good. It's because you can't plan a team that way. You cannot properly plan a future when that amount of money with a player at that age is essentially unaccounted for every year. You can't. And I think that is something that LeBron is bothered by. Like the idea that
do you think that his objection here is that is it a difficulty adjusting to not being the center of the universe?
Imagine to some degree it is. And I wouldn't blame
just that he just
blame
refuses to exist in a way that he isn't, because I mean, if
I don't know him well enough to know what the difference would even be. I'm saying if it is an adjustment, I don't blame him for it being.
No, I'm sure it is, but like I think there's probably a little bit of uncertainty of how to operate when your normal path of leverage is not as effective as it used to be.
Well, that's the other problem is he knows he doesn't have leverage. This is also the first time LeBron. I've thought about this recently, and LeBron is often he's used up teams down to the marrow in terms of all of their assets. Like he's kind of squeezed them dry and then he leaves. And so it's clear those teams got their end of the bargain too, because Miami, Cleveland, they won championships. Like those teams should have no complaints with LeBron. And for that matter, the Lakers should have no complaints with LeBron. But typically LeBron finds the exit ramp before the team he's on. This is the first time that a team has at least had an exit ramp before LeBron has had one.
I see that. I find it hard to believe that he is delusional enough to believe that he should be treated like in the same way with the same timeline and all these other things and the same priority as the Lakers are should treat Luka. I find that hard to believe. And so I think some of the reluctance, I think, to go all in was honestly less about LeBron pre-Luka trade. I think it was more about AD. I think they were very skeptical of that a combo and what to do about it, because the timeline for that was just so freaking goofy. But I have trouble. I think this is just where, like, I know you said you're not trying to describe it in kind of a narcissistic way, but it's hard for me to kind of read it in any other way. Like
we're talking about a world where guys get ranked the third best basketball player in the world and find that deeply disrespectful.
I know, I understand. And like I said, ego is obviously part of this.
I'm not judging LeBron for any of this. I just think this is the situation. Part of the reason LeBron is LeBron. It's because you have to be on some level this type of wiring.
I just think this is really, really genuinely the first time where the Lakers. I mean, I think the Lakers' interests and LeBron's interest actually overlap more than people are talking about, because it's also in the Lakers' interest to build the best team around Luka as quickly as you possibly can without doing stupid things. And that can include a guy who is second team all NBA. And so, which is what LeBron is. You got to replace that talent if you don't. And it's a lot easier said than done, but we'll talk a little bit more about this tomorrow, but like just going forward, how, the feeling of what I want, which is to have a chance to play championship caliber basketball, isn't quite there yet with where I am, and the people who are here aren't quite. I think he gets where he is in the pecking order It's
not just
what
that,
he
though.
wants is different potentially than what the Lakers are willing to do, or
But I
really
think it's
more specifically, what the Lakers can do.
I there's that, and we'll get into some of this for Friday show as well. Some of that pecking order, I really do think this is a reflection too of life under an expected new ownership. Like, for all intents and purposes, it's a new ownership group because there's a, put it this way. Remember when we did one of our early shows about what could be different in the Mark Walter regime? One of the things I said, a day or so after the news broke was, I do not think Mark Walter will be as automatically inclined to give LeBron this type of a deal, just automatically in perpetuity, no questions asked. I also don't believe that Jeannie Buss would have had the stomach to do this without Mark Walter as some type of backstop.
Possibly.
So we can think about that.
Locked on Lakers on YouTube is where we go hang out with over 35,000 subscribers. Do leave us questions. Mailbag is open. We will answer them on upcoming shows if you leave us good questions in the comment section or at Cam Brothers on Twitter. We'll see everyone tomorrow.